Hey guys, welcome to the fifth session of your module 1, where I'm going to be talking about my 5-step down strategy. I'm sure you must have already heard me talking about this strategy quite a lot, especially in my podcast episode as well. So I just wanted to talk about it in a bit more depth. What exactly is 5-step down strategy? It means quite easy, or in simple words, that you are trying to find an item or a product which has at least 3 variations attached to it, including your main one, and you are able to get at least 30 sales out of that as in totality. So your first variation, which is your main variation, needs to somehow generate at least 15 sales, and then 5 step down, your second one should be making 10, and the third one should be able to get at least 5 sales. So in total, you are trying to find an item which can get you at least 30 sales out of in between all 3 of those variations. Now, why 5 steps down approach? When there are so many different kind of approach you can follow, and there is no right or wrong approach when it comes to private labeling, or as a matter of fact any business, but this is just that what I follow, and I found it much more easier for the reasons which I mentioned here. First of all, finding an item which makes just £5 in profit, in net profit, is quite easier compared to finding an item which makes 10 or 15 or 20 pounds. Is quite obvious. It has less competition because some people would always go for the higher profiting items, and they would just leave the items which probably make only £5. So it is quite possible that you would face less competition. And even if there is a competition, then you have different ways of promoting your item by way of bundling and how you market your products, which we are going to learn when we arrive at that particular module. Again, the reason why I say I like this approach is because your variation 2 and 3 benefit from the success, the reviews and the rankings that you have been gathering for your variation 1. So say for an example, if we talked about yoga mats earlier quite a lot, say if you were selling a black yoga mat and suddenly you're making good enough sales and you're ready to release your second and third variation, which could be a different color yoga mat. When you list them, you don't start from scratch. So say for an example, if you started with a completely new product, so say you were selling a yoga mat and now you started selling a HDMI cable, they are completely different product, and they're completely they're in completely different niche. So even if you had a listing which had both these products, someone who's trying to buy a HDMI cable will not necessarily buy because your listing shows reviews, because those reviews are for your yoga mat and they're not necessarily for your HDMI cable, so they might not buy it. But say for an instance you release just a pink yoga mat, now you have been targeting it with PPC. Anyone who lands on your listing knows that you have been selling yoga mats, you got good reviews, it's ranked good. All it is probably a new color that you have released, and they wouldn't, trust me, they wouldn't even know, because unless they look at the release date, they wouldn't most of the time know what color the reviews are for a particular color or a variation. Yes, they can actually see in small words where it says that this particular review was for the black yoga mat, but people won't care because they know it's the same product. So if you see what I'm trying to say, you just worked on your first variations, and now your other variations are reaping benefits of your first variation. It can be easily replicated as well. So anytime you have, so for an example, if you decide to build your brand around your fitness industry, you could use the same concepts on your other products as well, say like yoga balls, or anything else you release which is into the fitness industry. We talked about those hydration backpacks as well. You can use the concept anywhere and everywhere where your product is, rather than releasing individual products. And you could actually have your hydration backpack into the same listing as your yoga mat as well, even though they are not same product, but they fall into fitness industry. So yes, you won't have reviews exactly for that, which you'll have to work around, but people would still buy because they would see you as a brand which is into the fitness industry. So it would definitely benefit sooner or later on that particular listing. Again, why follow any kind of approach? Because when you go into any kind of business and you don't have a structured or framework layout in front of you, you're just gonna get like hanky panky. You're gonna think too much, you don't know what your target is, and when you don't have a target, you don't measure your success, and when you don't measure your success, you don't know where you're going. So this approach provides you like a proper framework you can follow, and then you can benchmark your performance against it. So how does it exactly work? As I said, you're expecting a product with 3 variations where you want your first variation to make 15 sales, the second one 10 sales, and the third one 5 sales. In a way, you want to make sure that your entire product range or the variation which fall under your product 1 makes at least 30 sales. Now it could happen, and it has actually happened to me as well, that you would expect your variation 3 to make 5 sales, and it would be the other way around. It would start making even more sales than your first variations. So that might kind of happen, but remember, your intention is that you'll need to get at least 30 sales out of that. And let me share what exactly happened with my product 2. I released my product with 2 variations initially, which was black and a 10. It was like a brown but in a 10 color kind of variation. And then the third one I released was the roasted brown. Now I was expecting the black one to make 15 sales, the tan one to make 10 sales, and the roasted brown one to make just 5 sales. It has gone completely crazy at the moment. The roasted brown is actually making between 10 to 20 sales. The black is making somewhere around 10 sales, and the 10 is also making anywhere between 5 to 15 sales. So it just jumps around every day. Each day is a different variations, but the roasted brown, which I thought would be the worst performing variation, is actually crossing 15-20 sales a day, and sometimes it goes even higher than that. But I have completely stopped my PPC or any kind of promotion I was doing because these are more sort of like handmade items. It's taking a lot of time for me to get new stock, and by the time the new stock arrives, I've already run out of stock. So I'm kind of controlling the sales and stopping the sales to make sure that I don't run out of stock. So those kind of things would happen, and exciting things could happen once you start selling it. But this is what your initial framework should be. I have now changed this 5-step down approach to a 10 down approach, which is from like 25 10 or from 35 25 to 15. Is just completely changed, and I'm looking at it in a completely different way. But this should be your initial framework you should be looking at. Now, once again, just to brief you, if you were a little bit confused previously about, or you're not really sure what I mean by variation could be anything. It could be either size. So we talked about HDMI cable, where I said it could be a 2-meter HDMI cable, it could be a 10-meter HDMI cable, or it could be a color, where we talked about the yoga mats. It could be a black yoga mat, a pink yoga mat. So let's just look at some of the examples on the the Amazon listings as well. The first one you see is a 2-meter HDMI cable. The second one you see is 1.8. Again, this is not much difference, but you'll find there are a lot of different ones which range into different sizes. Even if you just go for any common cable like USB cables, HDMI cable. Look at the third one, that's only 0.9 meters, so it's less than a meter. Because some people, depending on how their furnishings and their TV control tables are, they don't like hanging wires, they don't like long cables which they have to tie around at the back of the TV. So everyone buys depending upon how big or how long the cable they need. Look at the third one again, fourth one again. It's again probably a 2-meter cable. Yes, it's a 2-meter cable, but it looks more like a premium cable. Actually, this is exactly the cable that I use on my TV. I did actually spend just because of the looks as well, and I thought it's probably a little bit better quality wise as well, because I did order one of the basics one, and then they just broke even when I was trying to fix it into one of my Virgin Media the box. So I actually went for the fourth one that you see in this picture. Exactly the same cable that I have right now. Again, yoga mats we talked about, it could be a color variation. So as you can see, the person selling this has got 10 different variations. So you can imagine how much profit you can make from each variation that you add to your existing variation that you listed first. But obviously we're not gonna get carried around too much about it, because I actually got overexcited when I started my first product, and I ended up having like 30-40 variations, and some of them are still here and I can't sell it. So we want to go for something depending on your product, only the first 3 variations which are possibly the ones which would make most sales. We don't want to release too much because it will affect your cash flow as well, which obviously we'll talk about when we reach into the particular module. Again, even though the 5-step down approach teaches you that you should be making 30 sales out of your one product. But when you start, I don't want you to think anything about the second and the third variation. All I want you to think about is that that has a potential of adding a variation to it. But initially, I don't want you to think anything else apart from making 15 sales out of your main variation of your first product. And each variation obviously makes £5, which is what we have always talked about, the product criteria, that you should be making at least £5 out of one item that you sell. Now again, a lot of people would say, or sometimes you're going in for an item where you think or you can't brainstorm that it doesn't, it probably doesn't have a variation. Don't panic, because there are different ways we could work out your variations. So say for an example, if your yoga mat didn't have color combinations available, which is not true because we know yoga mats are available in different colors, but this is just to give you an example, you could still find a product which could be an add-on product to your yoga mat. So like a yoga mat bag. Say for an example, if you had a HDMI cable and it wasn't available in different sizes, you could have a pack of 2 HDMI cables, or you could have a HDMI cable with a cable tie, because most of them are going to need to tie their cables so that it looks neat when it's around their skybox. So once the target? Basically, our target here is to achieve at least 30 sales out of one product, as you know. And because you have been already brainstorming ideas for such a long time, you know that even though there are thousands and thousands of items that you could private label, the hardest part and the most frustrating part is actually trying to pick one item. And if you've already spent so much time in picking your first item, it would be really easy if that particular item had some kind of variation, so at least you could start making some extra sales, rather than again going back to square one where you are thinking what kind of items I should try to sell, and then again the time involved to contacting manufacturers, arranging samples, obviously trying to haggle around prices, and then again reordering it, trying to make packaging for them and things like that. So this one avoids all those kind of issues that you would face. So now let's look basically what this could mean for you. Now, if you look at the other session of the module as well, where I tell you about the product criteria, you would know that I normally say that when you try to do any kind of private labeling, your target should be that you should be able to make at least £5 or $5 per unit when you're following the 5-step down approach. Now let's just do some simple math what this could mean for you, because I know when you think about it as a 30-day 30 sales of one product, it doesn't really sound that much, but when you actually do a math, then you would know what it really means. So if you were selling 30 units of one particular product between 3 variations a day, and each was making you either $5 or £5 per unit, you're making $150 or pounds a day, which means if you multiply that with 30, in 30 days, average month days, you're making about 4,500. And if you calculate that yearly, that goes up to $54,000 dollars or pounds. Now this is kind of a huge income. I don't know exactly what the average salary in the US is at the moment, but I'm assuming it's about $10 an hour. But even if you take UK, I don't know what the minimum wage rate is because I haven't worked for another firm for a long time now. But even if it is about £7 an hour, people usually work here, 40 hours a week. And if you work £167 an hour, that would be like, 1,120 in a month, whereas here you're looking at making about 4,500, which is a quite good amount of income. Even if you can somehow manage to get at this stage within first 6 months of your business, you have kind of achieved quite a lot. And thinking beyond that one product, or how you could take that product somewhere else as well, could mean a completely different scenario which you have never thought about. Just think about it. Now this was one product we thought about. Say even if you took 1 year to reach that stage, between 6 months and 1 year, I'm sure you can actually reach there as soon as if you launch your product. If you have thoughtfully selected a product which has 3 variations. But just to give you a little bit benefit of that, even if you took 6 months and you kept on possibly coming out with at least 2 more products by the end of the year, you're looking at 54,000 times for 54,000 pounds or dollars times 3, because every time you're releasing a product which has 3 variations and you're at least making 30 sales out of each product, which makes at least £5, you're looking at a big amount of income, which if you were in a profession, you would take for you years to reach that kind of stage. Now think about the other way. Maybe sometimes when you start this particular like private label products, and you think the initial bit, which is like finding the product and then promoting it and reaching out at that stage where you can make 30 sales consistently, is taking too much hassle, or it's too much hassle for you, or it's taking too much time, or you're not liking that kind of experience. What if you don't want that kind of stress, and have only one product at this time? What do you have? You want to just continue that product for a time being, for a couple of years maybe. Well, how about replicating the same product in different markets? That's the beauty about FBA model, that you could take this product and launch this in different Amazon marketplaces. Now, just to give you an idea, this is my experience. Obviously, US is one of the, I consider these 3 markets as major, markets in US and European marketplaces that Amazon has to offer. Now, UK and Germany, which is DE, you can see market is almost similar, but it sometimes, the German market is a bit bigger than UK depending on what product you sell. US, it tends to be at least 5 to 10x on a generic level, but I'm not overthinking it or overestimating it. I'm just saying that even if it was just as big as 1.5 times the UK market, you could sell. Even if you have that kind of sales, just one product with 3 variations making 30 sales a day in UK, Germany. US, I'm giving a little bit more because I know you could, if you were selling 30 of these in UK and Germany, I can tell you that you would definitely sell double or at least 4 times, 5 times in US. But just as a conservative approach, let's say that you would make 50 sales, and then the rest of the connected markets in the European network, which I will teach you at a later stage how you could make your products available if you were already selling in UK market, could, even if they make 10 sales a day, that equates to 150 sales a day. You multiply that by £5 in unit, that's 750 a day, which takes you to at least 24,500 per month. That's not year, that's per month. And I know this all sounds overwhelming, but trust me, if you can somehow release a product which makes 30 sales in one market, you can take that product to other markets as well, which is what I'm currently doing right now. Rather than releasing a lot of new products, I'm just going to concentrate on my second product. I'm not taking my first product in other marketplaces because it has a very low margin, and with the FBA model, I want to have a product which at least makes 5 to 7 pounds a unit. That's why I'm just concentrating on my second product, which is now 4 months in UK, and I'm already, if you have read my post and the latest episode, I've already launched in US now. I'm just waiting for stock to arrive so I can send it to the .com market. So you can see there's like endless possibilities you could think of. Different approaches, different strategies. So let's just recap what we have talked about till now for the 5-step down approach. So your aim is to have an item which has at least 3 variations or possibility of any kind of variation, whether that's color, size, or bundling or any add-on products. However, that's your target for the actual product. That's not your initial aim. Your initial aim is to have a product and its main variation make 15 sales. That's what you're going to be thinking all about at this stage. I don't want you to think about how you're going to make sales on your second variations or how you're going to promote it and things like that. All I want you to aim is releasing or finding a product that you could get 15 sales out of it. The reason why I say that is because I don't want you to get distracted what else you could bundle with it or how you're going to promote other products. 15 again is quite a sweet spot according to me. If you are in sub category, making 15 sales is not quite difficult if it's a product which can give you at least £5. Obviously it helps your cash flow because anytime you try and release, and this is my experience which I've made a lot of mistakes with, if you try and release too many variations, you have to keep up with the pace and you have to keep reordering it, and reordering and selling between that time there's a lot of things that happen. So you wait for your cash to come from Amazon, then you have to place an order again, you wait for the stock to be produced, then you have to wait for the stock to be on the way while it's you wait for the inbound shipping, and then finally you receive it, and then you label it, or if it's already been labeled, you send to FBA. This involves a lot of work, as in not of effort, but it takes time. And when you have too many variations, you're just gonna get too much confused, and I don't want your first variation to suffer because you are getting carried away with your other variations. So your initial target and aim is to reach that 15 sales. If you're not reaching that 15 sales, I don't want you to touch any other variations on that product for the time being. And again, because you only have one product, you have enough time to get used to the Amazon system and the ecosystem, because obviously most of you are not going to just completely leave your current work that you're doing. So you're going to do this at a spare time, and I don't want you to distract too much, because if you find this too stressful, you're just going to get discouraged and you're going to not put that much effort, or you might not find it that the success is not probably coming in, and you get discouraged, and then you just lose the actual interest that you had into the private label business. Now again, as I said, even after you release this is not something what you should be thinking about right now, but I just wanted to get it out to you that it's quite possible that you might not start making 15 sales, or you might make even you might make less. You might actually make more sales as well, just like it's happened on one of my variations in the second product. And again, sales depend on various factors. For example, as you know, the Prime Day is, obviously when you listen this, the Prime day would already be gone past, but I'm just saying that on that particular day, obviously we're gonna see resellers like me, private labels like me, are gonna see a sudden jump in sales. And that's why it's been slow for this last 3-4 days for me in all the products, because people are expecting that what if this product comes up a bit cheaper, then why shouldn't I wait for a couple of days? So things like that, time of the year, depending on the characteristics of the year, your product, some products, most of the products do sell in the last quarter of the year anyways, at a good pace. And that's the reason why I encouraged you guys to start this process right now, so that before you reach the quarter 4, you have already kind of gone through some of the process, you already have received your products, you have sold a bit, and then now you know what exactly the demand is going to be like. So if you were selling 10-15 a day, you can be sure that you're going to jump that to twice or thrice sometimes as well, depending on the product. Again, sometimes variation 2-3 might make more sales, as I said, if you remember about the example of my brown product, which makes more sales. But at the end of the day, all we are thinking about with this product is that we need to make at least 30 sales out of one product. Whether it depend, now it could be any mix, you could be making 10-10-10 as well. I don't really worry, I don't want to really worry about that, but this is just a framework you target initially, and then no one can tell you which once, unless you release the product, what your actual sales are going to be like, or what customers are going to like about it. So you have to wait and watch. But initial aim is 15 sales, which from the first variation, and your target or your mission for your first product is to reach 30 sales with 3 variations. Now, if you remember, I supplied to you, I had given out this task sheet in the second session as well. So I'm just I'm just going to ask you to try and repopulate that once again if you haven't done that. So once again, if you've already found some of the products, list them down on the left column and then think about what the variations could be. So first, for example, if I had put yoga mat, my common variation, easy enough to think about, would be just the color. So variation 1 would be black, variation 2 would be pink, variation 3 would be yellow, green. Second product, say if I had a HDMI cable, my variation would be 2 meters, 4 meters, and maybe I don't have other variations probably in that, then I could be just like 2 into HDMI cables. So that could be my third variation. So start putting them down on the task sheet. I'm going to add the task sheet to this particular session as well, even if you have access to that in the second session as well, but I'm just going to attach it once again here. So if you had already used that one, you could start making use of this one again as well. And once again, guys, 5-step down strategy ends here, but I have kind of told you exactly what it should be like. Yes, there's going to be tweaks and turns which would happen, or we'll have to change depending on the actual product, and I'll be there for you to make suggestions when you're actually on your journey. But This is a framework. Just keep in mind you have to follow until you are successful with your first product. And once again, as I always say on my podcast episode as well, anybody can do it. Just keep reminding yourself that I am anybody. So you are that anybody who's gonna do it. So that's it for this particular session, which was the 5-step down strategy. Go through it again and again, and if you have any questions regarding this particular strategy, or when you're on this stage, you could always message me, or you could leave your questions in the Academy Facebook group. And once you have gone past, as again I'm going to say this again and again, once you have completed the 5-step down strategy session on the module, post it on the Facebook group that mission 5-step down strategy completed. I want to make this a little bit more interactive and fun, so I hope that you guys would contribute to each other's success and help out each other. So have fun studying this particular session and the module, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next one.